Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. How are you guys?
Good day. Hello.
So we do want to encourage everybody, please do subscribe both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts and also on EEARTS, as we put up different videos on both places. And also we want to thank our Patreons. We couldn't do it without your guys' support over there. And also on Ko-Fi, where you could do a one-time donation or you could do monthly support just like you could do on Patreon. And do check out Medicinal Foods, lots of good products to boost the immune system and detox. Use coupon code EEA to get a discount. There's a link on the top of every video. And this I've quoted, 50 to 100 times.
And we're going to quote more.
Yeah. This is the Tower of Babel, the famous Tower of Babel quote. And so this is from the King James Version. Yes, the Masonic head of all Masonic churches in England and Scotland, King James. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As the people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. Let us use brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we might make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." The word for name there is Shem, and Shem is also one of the attributed names to one of the sons of Noah. And so we're talking about the people after the big destruction cataclysm that comes, perhaps the Younger Dryas cataclysm, regrouping, coming out of the mountains, coming out of the caves, coming out of wherever they were hiding, and starting to put things together again, starting to rebuild, but they're rebuilding as one people. So, and then here Genesis 11:5, you see, "But the Lord," and of course all these words are translations of a word in Hebrew. "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. And the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, and nothing that they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city, and that's why it's called Babel. Because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world, and from there he scattered them over the face of the whole earth. And then it gets into Shem's family line. And again, when we look to what were the original words used, because over time words, they change, and the way we think about a certain word can change. Well, there was a certain word that was used in English up until modern times for a bundle of sticks, and then all of a sudden it became a derogatory term. These things are always constantly changing. But, here, if you guys are not familiar with these two guys, you should check them out. Paul Wallace and this is Mario Biglini. Very, very fascinating because, these guys have done a ton of studying. And what they've found, again, is it's all about the translations and mistranslations. Because as Paul Wallace goes and shows, the word used was Elohim, and it simply meant the mighty ones. It was designating a type of being that was not typical Homo sapiens, not typical human. Beings that came here from elsewhere and had advanced technology and were viewed in a way that they were superior to us, and they most definitely acted as if they were superior to us. And then there's connections with Mario with the Vatican. He's an internationally best-selling Italian author, researcher, highly regarded scholar of ancient Hebrew. For many years, he worked for Rome's St. Paul Press as a Bible translator, providing with great precision the literal meaning of Hebrew words for Vatican-approved interlinear Bibles. Again, they have to hide things. The Vatican's hiding more things than perhaps any other entity on the planet. They have to. Because if they told you that, everything we're referring to in the Bible are basically alien overlords that are using you as slaves and using the planet as a resource, well, I don't think there's going to be a lot of reverence there.
No. People will look at that and they'll say, hey, this isn't right. I've been tricked all along, and I'm going to do what I think is right for me instead of listening to other people tell me what's right for me. It would really cause a huge backlash if they told the truth.
Absolutely. So the oldest word used in the Bible as God is the Hebrew word Elohim, which again means mighty ones. And, here you go. This is really, if we could frame things from this point of view, it could change everything that we're seeing. Now, the Great Reset is becoming the Great Reject, and let's hope that keeps going. Because what's happening is another phase in the plan of the true controllers is rolling out. And what is that plan? Well, that plan is making it so that there's no more even semblance of freedom. The semblance of freedom is going to be gone because they only need so many to work the fields. They only need so many to work the mines. They only need so many, period. So what they're doing is systematic, and it's very well planned out. And in fact, they do this every so often. There's a reason why, if you really, really study the way the population grows over time, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And we've referred to this one battle in that's given to us in the Vedic works that speaks of a war in which over 1 billion people die in a battle. 1 billion people. Okay, so we are months away at most, well, given the way the world's population was growing, we're months away at most from hitting 8 billion people. That would be a battle that wiped out 1 out of every 8 people on this planet. Could it be that in times past, the population was significantly more than it is even now?
And could it be that technologies were much, much different from what we see now? I really don't think we are the pinnacle of modern anything. I think looking back into these ancient writings, we're quite primitive. So just so many things we've been taught since very, very little do not add up at a certain point. And then this is what makes us have our awakening. We have to try to make sense of things.
So you see this. The Italian farmers hit Milan with the message, we are not slaves. We are farmers. Well, in the Bible, what happens? God creates man, sticks him in a garden to tend to the garden. In the Anunnaki stories, what happens? The man's created to basically do the physical hard work, working physically on the planet, while everybody else chills and relaxes and does other things. Yeah, slaves. And when we look into the Bible, we could find biblical quotes that condone slavery. And we've talked about that. When you see that, what are they concerned with? They're concerned with humanity being united. You can't have them united. And if you look to Deuteronomy 32:8, it talks about humanity being split into tribes, each one governed by a different heavenly being. Hello. And then put at odds against each other. This is what we have with nations. Now they're getting to the point where they're going to eliminate the need for these nations because now they have corporations. Effectively doing the same thing as corporations do compete against each other. And again, this just shows us the way of the real controllers, which is one of dog eat dog, shark eat shark. They're not beings that are out there to help each other. They're all about themselves. And it's pretty obvious that the leadership of the world is the same way. When we see here, China allowed to buy farmland next to sensitive U.S. military base in North Dakota. Yeah, North Dakota, Grand Forks Air Force Base. And we've been saying since Evolutionary started, just a few months after Evolutionary started, I did a video saying, what's planned? Yeah, a Red Dawn scenario. Civil War, Red Dawn. This is what's planned. When you see people talking about what's going on, a lot of people are waking up. What's going on? Why are they allowing massive amounts of farmland to be bought by some of the richest people in the world and also the fine dining ware country? A lot of people have questions. Why is it okay? Why is it okay? It shouldn't be okay. Not unless there's something very, very diabolical to the folks that live in the USA planned. And here you see a secretive Chinese oligarch tied to the CCP just purchased 140,000 acres of land in Texas, right near Laughlin Air Force Base. Why is this being allowed? Because, there are certain people that are in positions of very high power, and they know what's going on, and they're in on it. They are in on it. They understand even perhaps the bigger situation. I do think that those at the very top, the Pope knows. As Pope Leo made the statement hundreds of years ago, the myth that we have given you of Christ has served us well. That doesn't mean that Yeshua, because his name is Yeshua, it wasn't Jesus, it wasn't really publicly translated into Jesus and used out in the open en masse until the 1400s. This is all part of that distortion. And yet people believe what they're told without questioning. Why? Because, again, their parents taught them that. Why? Because their parents taught them that. This is, again, you don't want to be disrespectful to your parents, your teachers. And, we're taught to not be even disrespectful in other eras with, governmental authorities. But now we've woken up to the fact that they all have their own agendas going on. And their agenda is not an agenda that's good for the average person here in this particular country. As you see, this is the area that we're talking about. It's right on the board, right on the border. And you can see it's directly across from San Antonio and Austin. Will this be a route that an invasion force comes in? Well, an invasion force has been coming in. There's millions of people that cross the border illegally. The army's already here, and it numbers in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. When we see just how corrupt everything truly is, and it is irrevocably corrupted. This is, Nancy, P, and her hubby, the one that, was pulled over for DWI, but, again, their buddy Gavin over in Cali said, don't worry, we got this taken care of. If it was you or I, it wouldn't have been taken care of. Because it's them, it's taken care of. Her husband buys millions in computer chip stocks right before a big vote. Yeah. Legislation next week that would deliver billions of dollars in subsidies to boost the chip manufacturing industry. They know what the vote's going to be. They're capitalizing on it. This is illegal, but yet it goes on every day. Every day. And this is how they keep the party to themselves.
Mm-hmm. And people are so frustrated to the point they just don't understand. Why do they keep doing these things? Why do they do this? Obviously, it's not working. And really, the buildup is they're going to do this whether we like it or not, because there's a huge illusion in front of us that we have our rights and we have certain things that are going to be given to us. But no, I mean, that's the illusion that's being broken down. They're just going to keep marching forward. So we really have to push back in a lot of different ways.
And we've talked about all these leaders that have been dropping like flies, like the one over in Italy. And that's kind of a devilish little grin there. Yeah, I wonder who he learned that from. Maybe from the Pope. Yeah. Perhaps, yeah. So Mario Draghi is out, by the way. As you see, he's a member of the few. This we could take as heartening because, the slaves are waking up. There were slave rebellions in the past. Yeah, there were. In fact, there was with the Gigi against the Anunnaki. And then the Ajiji became the new bosses. And Senator Tom Cotton tells BlackRock to lawyer up. Finally, some pushback against the world's leading hedge fund. Yes. Because again, BlackRock, again, these corporations, this is the real power structure. It's not even nation states. And nation states were always only for the express purpose of keeping humanity at war against each other, whether that's economic war or literal war. It's always about divide and conquer. But the corporations, the monetary system is how they control us in this day and age. But, that was always a tool. It's always been a tool because, again, if you're not able to buy or sell anything, then obviously it's going to make life very, very difficult. And the problem is that many people believe the playbook because it tells us you will not be able to buy or sell without having a particular thing done. So they automatically think the rest of the whole playbook is correct when it's just the script that they've been handing us. It's the script. Of course the script's going to be accurate because it's the script.
We absolutely have to learn to create our own script. We have to look at these things and understand that this is a timeline, it's a possibility, but it's not my possibility. I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm not going to go there. We have these free will choices, free will options, but you really have to want it. It's that deep want, desire, determination in the soul that helps us change these storylines.
They know that if they tell you what they're going to do ahead of time, in a particular script that they hand out to you, then you're probably going to believe more of that script. You might actually believe it's divinely inspired. And you might actually even put all your chips in and start to worship the ones that are putting you down, the ones that made you a slave in the first place. And again, what do? They take the truth and they distort it. Just like taking an actual person, Yeshua, an actual amazing teacher of righteousness. As we mentioned, he was an Essene, and the Essenes were a group that believed that the system even of that time, the Roman system, which really hasn't changed when we look at the system that we have now, it's morphed a little, but it's still the same structure that we have on this planet because it is ultimately the controller structure. And he and those people, the Essenes, they lived outside of it as much as possible, but his mission made it so that he had to interact with people. So he did, and he traveled everywhere, and he talked to people, and he gave them the gospel, the good news, right? And he didn't teach the God spell that keeps people captivated in fear of hell and damnation and eternal punishment. That's basically what the power structure does. They twist. He taught basically all about the ascension mysteries and what human potential is, and taught about the fact that we can rise up and we will rise up and out of this dark age. And here we see in Iran, so Iran is part of that, we could say, the BRICS divide, so to speak, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and we see that Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and others are going to be joining them economically, but still they have their problems. In Iran right here, there's tons of protests. People don't like what's going on that side. In China, you have people failing to pay their mortgages and feeling like they were screwed and refusing to pay their mortgage. You have people refusing to go along with all the social protocols that have been done, and we just saw a whole bunch of them that were basically out in the street and handcuffed while people were guarding them with fully automatic weapons. This is a human revolution that needs to take place, and it's first recognizing that the power structure is all about controlling humans, not helping, not guiding, not getting us to grow and to self-sustain in a more symbiotic relationship with the planet and everything on it. No. This is just about managing slaves in their mindset. Central bank digital currencies are coming. Yeah. And as we said, in the U.S., we have a timeline that we're given now, too. And by the way, there's a lot of timelines converging in that 2024, 2025 period. That, again, things are ratcheting up. We expect that it's like it's a slow boil going on right now, and things are being turned up. And Sita's chiming in as well. She said, yes, absolutely. They're turning up the heat. But when we get to 2024, 2025, that's just a totally different story. Yet consciousness is waking up, and more people are recognizing that this is just an opportunity for greater control. And here we see nearly 100 have been hospitalized, but Daily Harvest doesn't know what's making people sick. This product right here, if you have any of this, don't eat it. Crumbles. Yeah, it looks like it's marketed as a very, very healthy food, and it's got lentils and leeks. It was a frozen product. People are having gastrointestinal illness and abnormal liver function. Yeah, elevated liver enzymes, hospitalizations, gallbladder removal. Now, this is something that the guides have been telling me, that there's going to be a lot of our foods that are going to be sitting there because we're not going to trust them. We're just not going to trust them. Eat as simply as possible. Eat as little processed foods as possible. So what do we even mean? Well, simply like an apple. And unfortunately in this world, if you don't know it's organic, and look for little labels, organic, non-GMO. You want to make sure no pesticides when you're eating any dairy products. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids. Why do they keep doing all these things, you might ask yourself, if you're have an inquiring mind. Is it really just because they want to give us a bigger, better product? Or is there a different agenda truly in mind here? And yeah, I do think there's going to be an awful lot of food that might be sitting there that people are not going to touch because they're not going to trust it.
What I think is really important, what's really key during these times, is going back to simplicity. Asking yourself, why are all of these things that they are feeding us, why is it so complex? Why do they have to do all of these things? And if we look back and think, well, if they really cared about us, then why are they putting hormones? Why are they putting pesticides? Why are they injecting our food or radiating our food if they really care about us? And that's a fair question to ask. So I do think it would be a good idea if a lot of people start getting a hold of their local farmers so they have a better idea of where their food is coming from. You then have a relationship from you asking and someone giving. It's a direct personal relationship that you have with handling your food. And I think a lot of things really should be moved and done in that way, so that our lives could be much healthier and we would interact better and we would have a relationship with our societies all around us.
So this is an article that basically says the ones that voted for 45 favor secession for their states. Yeah, we've seen this before. There was a poll a couple months back that was basically showing about a third of people, and we're still seeing that same number, maybe growing a little bit, that truly think that the United States would be better off dividing. And what's interesting is that it's now starting to be split both ways. I think maybe the RVW thing, the ruling that came in from SCOTUS, irritated the left to the point where now they're in agreement in an equal percentage with the right that, you know what, it's time for a divorce, guys. We don't like the way you do things. You don't like the way we do things. And so we trust our state to get it right more than we trust the federal government. And this is now the thing that's what I took away from this little article here. Because before it was the right that more wanted to get the divorce than the left. But it did seem like that whole abortion ruling has irritated the left. And then I don't doubt that once they come back to work after their, hiatus, SCOTUS will probably give us a couple more big zingers that's going to really tick off people. Perhaps, on purpose on the left. And it's all about tension. How do you manage a slave population? You're better off having them fight amongst themselves. Look at the Roman gladiators. So many of the gladiators, that's what they were. They were slaves. They were slaves. They fought amongst each other for the sport of, the government, of the people, of the Roman citizens. And of course, the Roman citizens were treated better than those of other countries that were taken over. But the countries that were taken over, Rome couldn't, it didn't have enough people to govern the whole world if it was using its own forces. What does it do? It gets the people that they conquered to govern for them. Find the ones that will be slimy, self-centered, just out to better themselves, and are willing to betray their own kind to do it for you. That's exactly what they do. And so these non-Homo sapien entities have done the same thing, and we see them. They're in the halls of Congress. They're in all positions of leadership all across this globe. Globe.
Oh, no.
Globe.
He didn't go there.
Well, yeah, I saw this thing that was saying that Japan possibly, there's no way Japan could have attacked Hawaii because, they would have to go down first and go to the left, so to speak, and go by Australia and then go by Africa and then go by South America and then come up to attack Hawaii because, the world's flat and they would have fallen off the edge. And it made me want to cry.
Well, it does kind of depress you.
Well, there are some that, you're not going to be able to reach. You're just not going to be able to reach. And I think, again, a lot of it, if you are looking to those people, they do follow the Bible, and they follow it in a literal sense without realizing the hundreds, thousands of revisions, the true history that's behind it. And the UK Met Office issues first ever red warning for extreme heat. Yeah, the record of 101.7, which was set in Cambridge in 2019, has basically a 50-50 chance of being outdone. Could actually get as high as 104 Fahrenheit or 40 Celsius. That is kind of extreme. I don't think of the UK as being that hot. I really, really don't.
No, we don't. We have all kinds of things going on where that pendulum is just swinging way, way, way out into extremes, and it's not good for us.
France cuts nuclear power generation amid the record-breaking heat wave. Yeah, at the same time, they're getting ready to have no fuel for winter coming from Russia, and they're telling people, get ready. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. EU drafts plan to reduce gas consumption ahead of uncertain winter. This is all about hammering the slaves into submission, where, they're going to rebel because, they want to have whatever, steak once a week. Well, we're going to get it so that they're going to be happy to get rock soup once a week.
I know, it's just horrible.
This is what they're doing. This is all about their plan to hammer into submission. Rail workers to strike for another 2 days in August. This is in the UK, and meanwhile, 46 did basically an emergency order to halt the strike that was coming in the U.S. As far as the railroad situation. So we have like a 60-day reprieve, which will take us halfway through September. And September is a huge month, as we've been saying. September is when a lot of realizations should be happening. But the good news is, again, people really are coming together. They're coming together. You see it. Now you have truckers joining farmers. When it worked for the Gigi. If you look back to the Anunnaki legends, the Igigi, who also were working on Mars and then came here. And in some ways, as we've said, the origins of the Abrahamic tradition is truly a Martian tradition. It comes from Mars. And they came here, they rebelled here, said, no, we're not doing the dirty work anymore. And so that's when they basically manipulated DNA of what was already here to create their slave race during a Kali Yuga, a dark age. And so it was a manipulation. It was actually a downgrading of the DNA in many, many ways. Again, our DNA, they say it's 90% junk. Well, that junk is raveling. It's not falling apart anymore. It's not snipped. We have a second chromosome that was fused. That doesn't happen in nature. We've been tampered with. It's obvious we've been tampered with. And again, it's just to utilize humanity as a slave race. Why do we all work all day long? So many of us work, 40, 50, 60 hours or more. Why? We're creators. We're not laborers in the sense of laboring for other entities. That's not really what we're all about. We're supposed to be creators here. We have a lot more to offer than just working for others, doing things that we don't even really want to do. If you could do anything in the world, would it be what you're doing now? And it should be 100% of the people saying yes. But it's not, unfortunately, because we're still slaves economically to the system.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I think is a really good exercise to figure out, well, what would you do if you were not motivated by money? If money was not a consideration, what would you love to do? But that is a situation where most people find themselves kind of backed up against a wall because they haven't even thought about it all of their lives. All they have thought about was, what am I going to do for a living? And you have these entities who've set up these schools to send us to so that we can act like batteries to run their things, these buildings that they need us to run so that they can benefit from that. We don't even really think from a young age, what do I really love to do? Everything, or most things that we do are motivated by money because they have to be. That's the situation that we've been put in, and it's very, very unnatural.
And yet the protests are spreading across the globe. So the Great Awakening is happening. Absolutely. And then here, this was interesting. Black helicopters chasing orbs in a crop circle. This was back in 1994. And there's a video here, and here's some stills, and you can see these orbs, because the orbs are just a lot of orbs are actually beings. Other orbs are just technology. But yeah, there is absolutely an orb crop circle connection. And the crop circles, many times, are messages from beings just cheering us on, saying, keep it going, guys. Wake up. Here, this is what we're trying to tell you. And they're giving us pictures to work in our minds, not the analytical mind, but to tap into that visionary mind, the right brain side, giving us clues as to what's going on, the fact that there is a great awakening, and we are going to come out of this dark period in time. There's a reason why, when we talked about this, we talked about the fact that the EU wants to keep Russia from having any more gold, but yet they're dropping a whole bunch of other things that were issues. The gold standard being taken off the gold standard, we talked about when the U.S., Roosevelt, signed into law, and you had to basically give the government all your gold. And we've seen things that don't make sense because they make us out to be basically running around with little sharpened sticks and throwing stones just thousands of years ago, 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. They make us out to be barely more than animals as far as, our intelligence and what we were capable of. And yet we see a 200,000-year-old metropolis in Africa. And there's gold mines. There's gold mines that have been dated between 80,000 and 115,000 years old. Swaziland, Zululand. This is in Africa again, which goes along very well with what we hear from the Anunnaki stories. And no, it's not all Zecharia Sitchin that believes this. As we have so many different, not even just the stories we get about the Anunnaki from Sumer, but also from tribes in Africa itself that talk about these. And there's tribes all over the globe that talk about these other beings. And it's just fascinating to see, how was mankind running around with spears and throwing sticks just a handful of thousands of years ago. And yet we were actively working, mining gold 100,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago. Something doesn't add up. It really doesn't. And you have Zulu legends that were very interesting, hold that they were worked by artificially produced flesh and blood slaves created by who? The first people that were here. These slaves, the Zulu legends recount, went into battle with the ape man when the great war star appeared in the sky. Isn't that fascinating to hear some of their legends? And, there's a tribe out there, the Dogon, that understand that Sirius is a binary. Actually, from what we've got, it's part of a trinary system with us. But one of those stars is not visible. There's no way they could know it was there, but they knew it was there. When we look to the Vedic legends, they understood the span of the Milky Way in terms of how long it would take in light years to cross it. They understood the shape. They tell us of hundreds of thousands of different humanoid species that exist in our own galaxy alone, and that openly showed themselves in other periods in the ancient past, interacted with humans. From our experience, our own personal experience, we've had personal experiences with many different species. And we know also the Hopi talked about the ant people that went and took humanity down inside the earth to write out some cataclysms and then let them know when it was safe to come back up. And, again, that we had interactions with the ant people in New Mexico. And there's a lot of different species that are interacting with the planet all the time, even right now at this very day. Do you really think that with the history that they tell us, humans were mining gold 100,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago? We've been all over the American Southwest, and we've seen a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense. Michael Tellinger's done, as you see, this footprint that looks pretty dang real. A lot of great research into this, into the Anunnaki, into the gold mines. As you see, ancient gold mine rediscovered, 100,000-year-old ruins of South Africa. Ancient Anunnaki gold mines. And then how about a 2.8 billion-year-old sphere found in South Africa? Well, maybe they weren't made here in the first place. Maybe they were brought here from somewhere else and then just left here from an ancient civilization. Can you imagine the technology? This was somebody else saying, you give the powers that be too much credit for their technology because they couldn't have the technology to do certain things. Think about that. Think about where we are now, where we were 200 years ago, and imagine a civilization that's 100,000 years ahead, 1,000,000 years ahead. Scientists have. That's why we have the Kardashev scale. Yeah, at some point they would be able to actually literally have the technology to move entire solar systems. create things like Dyson spheres that we see out in the Vatican on display.
I know. You just really need to go to that one thing when you're thinking about technology and how far we are or are not. Why would the Vatican have such a thing sitting out on their lawn? Just, there's so many different types of technology that exist that we are not allowed to see. There is no reason to have the energetic interference that we have right now to run this planet, because we have everything we need right here. We have everything we need in the ether, in the etheric realms, to generate enough whatever it is we want to generate to make ourselves comfortable and at home on this planet, and we can be harmonious about it. But it's like that's been hijacked and given a very generic type of feel that's poisoning our planet now.
Absolutely. And this is the New Testament. Again, a lot of people will say, well, I don't like the God of the Old Testament. I just follow the New Testament because the message of Jesus, if you read the Beatitudes, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and some of it is really wonderful and nice. But this is 3 Colossians 3:22. Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything, not only to please them while they are watching, but with sincerity of heart and fear of the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with your whole being for the Lord and not for men. So when we translate it back into Elohim, fear of the Elohim, fear of the mighty ones, fear of the powerful ones that come from the sky. Slaves, fear, hello, is it clicking for those that are still locked up in the fundamentalist mindset? And again, a lot of that is just fear-based. You can't face the truth because you can't handle the truth. We've been lied to in every way, manner, shape, and form. And of course, the mainstream message, again, you might not believe MSNBC or CNN, but still you're believing in blood sacrifice, and you're still believing in something that tells you slavery is okay. And to serve your masters. It's the slave masters that would tell you that in the first place.
It's absolutely okay to question this. There is nothing wrong with it. It's a perfectly human thing to do. And I know myself, I was simply afraid because I thought, I was going to burn in hell forever. My soul is at stake here. So I never questioned anything. But then I reached a point in my life and I thought, no, this can't be. It's the simplest thing. Why can I not question things? And once we've answered that and we're ready and able to step out of the box, there's so much more information out there that explains that we are magnificent beings. We are co-creators. We do have a purpose here. And it's not just to figure out what I'm going to do for a living for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. So, you might have heard us using the term Sanatana Dharma, which means like eternal truth, eternal wisdom. So what's really taught there? Well, and you might have heard that, in Hinduism, for instance, there's countless gods. Yeah, but, those beings are recognized that they're not source. They're all like us. Some of them we could view as bigger brothers and bigger sisters. Others, might be just slightly ahead of us technologically and spiritually as far as their ability to understand how the universe works. And then other ones, vastly ahead of us. But they're all recognized as distinct beings that are not source, because there is one source. And that source, again, when we look to Taoism, the Tao that can be labeled, named, described, is not the eternal Tao. It's again, where we all come from. Source is inside of us. Every single one of us has source inside of us. So the true source of all things already is inside of you. You don't have to go to any power structure. You don't have to do any sort of ritual. If you like rituals and there's certain rituals that have meaning for you, then do them. But again, recognize what you're doing and who you're giving power to. This is the importance, because when we give our power away and we say, oh, okay, again, translate these words differently. Translate these words differently. What if you literally said that you're giving your power away to the Anunnaki? Because a lot of people do. They say it all the time. They say their will be done, not mine. I'm just a slave. It's time for slaves to rise up and to not be a slave anymore. It's time to be free people, co-creators with Source, with God, with the big G, because there is a creator of this universe, but it doesn't rule out of fear.
No, it does not rule out of fear. So these things are very fair that we should be asking ourselves, and we're getting a lot of momentum. We're doing very, very well when it comes to breaking this illusion. We have something coming up in the very near future, which is going to give us a window to change things. And it's in the very near future. And this is something that we really need to wait for, and we will know when it's here. So I hope this gives you guys something to look at, something to think about, and free yourself. It's not always about what am I going to do for a living.
No, it's about what does my heart want me to do. Follow your passion. Follow that which makes you happy, which gives you that infinite joy bubbling from within. Have the courage to do that. After all, we are eternal beings just having this temporary 3D experience. As always, guys, much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.